Okay, so welcome back. In this video, we'll be discussing about the renal system. So we'll be starting from today onwards. The renal system will be starting a series. So today is our first lecture about the renal system. We'll be discussing about the introduction, the functional anatomy of the kidney. Okay. Then we'll be proceeding into details about how the concentration of urine occurs and what are the series. So stay tuned. In this video, we'll be discussing about the introduction and the functional anatomy of kidney. So we all know that in the general introduction, what we have studied in our physiology classes, you can see that we studied about homeostasis, right? So kidney also plays a very important role in homeostasis. So what are the roles? The number one is that it helps in urine formation and excretion of waste products. So kidneys help to excrete the waste products, which we can see here, okay, and the products of metabolisms. These are the urea, the creatinine, and the uric acid. So remember that this urea, creatinine, uric acid needs to be excreted from the body. Otherwise, this will cause toxic effects to the body, right? So this kidney helps in the urine formation and excretion of the waste products. The second is the regulation of ECF volume. This is also very much important. So you might get a short note on what are the effects of homeostasis, what are the homeostatic role of kidney. This you can get as a short note. Make sure that you enumerate these points. Okay, you write this point as a short note. So it plays an important role in regulation of the ECF volume. Okay, the extracellular fluid volume it plays, and what it does here that it secretes many hormones like the aldosterone, the antidiuretic hormone, the anti-natriuretic peptide. Okay, the atrial natriuretic peptide. Sorry, and then it is angiotensin. So it releases many hormones play a role in this ECF volume. And this will then lead to reabsorption of sodium and water from the kidneys to control the ECF volume. So this ECF volume is basically maintained. It is neither too high, neither too low. This has to be maintained. So once the ECF volume is maintained, the proper sodium, the proper concentration of sodium and water is maintained, then this will lead to a proper flow. It helps in your regulation of your blood pressure. Okay. Then the third one is the regulation of the blood flow. So as this regulation of the ECF volume will be maintained, this will also lead to regulation of the blood pressure. So kidneys play a very important role in long-term regulation, okay, long-term regulation of arterial blood pressure. Okay, so we'll be discussing that how this plays a role. In this video only we'll be discussing about the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, okay, that is known as your RAS. It plays a very important role in regulation of kidney, in regulation of your long-term arterial blood pressure. Okay, so these 3 points. The fourth point here is that it also plays a role in regulation of electrolyte composition of the body fluids. Okay, so no matter whatever the body fluid is, it plays an important role. So it plays a important role in regulation of electrolyte composition of the body fluid. The fifth one here, I will also be discussing about this. Kidneys also contribute to vitamin D synthesis. Very, very, very important. Okay, so vitamin D synthesis plays means it has 3 sides. The first is the skin, the second one is the liver, and the third one is the kidney. Okay, so remember this. This also contribute to vitamin D synthesis that controls the plasma calcium concentration. Then the fifth one is about the acid-base balance. Okay, the kidneys also play a role in your acid-base balance. So you need to understand that your body is basically it's having a slightly alkaline pH, that is about 7.4. Okay, so 7.36 to 7.44, that is your basically your body pH. So whenever your body goes into acidosis, okay, so these kidneys start functioning and tries to make your body alkaline. Whenever your body goes in alkalosis, then this will try to this plays role, and this makes your body come to a normal pH level. So you need to understand that neither it goes into acidosis nor it goes into alkalosis. It maintains a proper pH. This proper pH is basically maintained by kidneys. So acid-base balance will be having a separate lecture in this renal system. We'll be having a separate lecture in the coming classes. Okay, I'll be taking that lecture. And this is how it controls the bicarbonate excretion and the H plus ions. Okay, So here I'll be discussing you about this. I'll be taking a lecture. Now coming to the 6th point here, it also plays a role in regulation of plasma osmolality. So this regulates the plasma osmolality by controlling the sodium chloride and water reabsorption. Okay. So this sodium chloride and water reabsorption, this is basically by the antidiuretic hormone. Okay, you people have studied about the antidiuretic hormone in endocrinology, so I hope that this helps you. The 7th point is about the regulation of erythropoiesis. This erythropoiesis, the erythropoietin hormone, which helps in your synthesis of RBCs. Okay, this erythropoietin, the major regulator of the erythropoiesis, is secreted from the interstitial cell or in the peritubular capillary bed of the kidney. So that is the main reason. One more reason, short note or one-liner answer is asked. It is asked about why kidney failure, those people who are in chronic renal failure, are more prone to anemia. This is the reason why, because kidney diseases basically results in anemia. Once there will be a kidney disease, there won't be interstitial cells which are functioning in the pericapillary bed of kidney. And once this peritubular capillary bed of the kidneys won't be functioning, this interstitial cells won't be functioning, there won't be any release of the erythropoietin. So this will lead to what? This will lead to anemia. All right. Crystal clear concepts. Okay. Then comes your endocrine functions. So what are the endocrine functions of the kidneys? These kidneys basically secrete thromboxane A2 and prostaglandins. Okay. In addition to the secretion of the erythropoietin, these kidneys also secrete renin. Very, very, very important. So remember that these kidneys secretes thromboxane A2 and prostaglandins. Okay. In addition to the erythropoietin. So these were all about your these were all about your like hormones which are secreted. Now coming the most important, that is the renin. Renin is basically what you can say, it is an enzyme, it is an acid proteases. So this will basically helps in your conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2, and this will basically lead to a balance of your blood pressure. Okay, this will basically try to control your blood pressure, brings down your blood pressure. Okay. So kidneys also also form calcitriol, that is 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol, which is the active form of vitamin D3, and 25 hydroxycalciferol. And then is the gluconeogenesis. So normally these kidneys are not the primary site of gluconeogenesis, but in starvation and synthesis of glucose from non-carbohydrate. So in conditions like starvation, this will basically go into gluconeogenesis. Okay, so we have discussed about these 9 points we have discussed. So what I would like to say is that first we will have a homeostatic view. So we have discussed about the homeostatic view, that how this kidneys plays a role. Now we'll be coming to the gross structure. Okay, the gross structure, will be discussing about the gross structure of the kidney, and then we'll be discussing about what are the filtration membrane, and the basically about the glomerular membrane, and we'll also be discussing about the histological aspects, and then we'll be discussing about the renin-angiotensin system. So this is all about this. Today I'll be discussing about these topics. Okay. So coming to the gross structure of the kidney, here we can see that if we take a sagittal section of the kidney, okay. So what are the components which are seen in the sagittal section of the kidney? So this one is basically your sagittal section. You can see minor calyx, the major calyx, renal pelvis, you can see here. So you people have studied in your anatomy. Then is the ureter, this is the papilla, this is the medulla, which is called as the renal pyramid, and these are the cortex. Okay. So one of the MCQs or one of the one-liner questions, or this all something is asked, is how many nephrons are there in each single kidney. So remember that there are total 1.3 million. Okay, 1.3 million nephrons are present, okay, in each kidney. So I'll be taking this one nephron. Suppose these are all your nephrons. Okay, so like this you have total 1.3 million nephrons. Okay, so one nephron I am taking here. I'll be taking this one nephron here, and I'll be zooming this, and I'll be looking about what are the parts of this nephron. These 1.3 million nephrons basically functions. These functions, then only your like proper excretion of this urea, uric acid, creatinine is there, and your basically urine formation occurs. So each and every nephron functions properly in your each kidney. Okay, then only this urine formation occurs. Then only there is regulation of your blood pressure. There is regulation of your ECF volume. There is regulation of your sodium, potassium, many electrolytes. Okay, there is a reabsorption of your glucose. So many things are there. So we'll be discussing about this one nephron here, and these are the parts of nephron. So what are the parts of nephron? You people have studied in your PMT exams that if we are discussing this, what we can see here is that the first one here, this is the Bowman's. First, we'll be discussing about this glomerulus. Okay, this glomerulus, you can see that there is an afferent arteriole and the efferent arterioles. Okay, so once this blood goes here from the afferent arteriole, this will go and this will basically get filtered from here, and then via the efferent arteriole, it then goes back. Okay. So what we can see is that from this afferent arteriole, here you can see the glomerulus, and this is the renal corpuscle. Okay, 1 minute. I'll erase all. Okay, now I'll be discussing this. Okay, so here you can see that these are the afferent arterioles, and then it goes via the efferent arterioles. So here these are the main proper thing which you can say that here there is a filtration of the blood. Okay, there is filtration. There is, and here you have a filtration membrane. So there are total 5 layers of filtration membrane. If you look at this in the next slide, I'll be discussing. There are total 5 layers. Okay, 5 layers of your filtration membrane. I'll be discussing that there is food process of podocytes. Then there is lamina rara externa, or the outer cement layer. Then there is lamina densa. Then there is inner cement layer. And then is the endothelial cell layer. So I'll be discussing that in the next slides. Then you can see about the Bowman's capsule. Okay, this one is the Bowman's capsule. So once it goes here, this electrolytes here, this will basically this will start reabsorption of glucose, reabsorption of sodium. Here this will try to pull back into the blood. Okay, so here you have the proximal tubule. I'll be discussing this part. Okay, you have the proximal tubule. You have the thin descending limb of loop of Henle. Then is your thin ascending limb of loop of Henle. Then there is thick ascending limb of loop of Henle. Then is the distal convoluted tubule, and then comes your cortical duct. Okay, this one is your cortical duct. So in cortical duct you have 2 parts. One is the medullary part, and one is your cortical part. Okay, so you have all these parts. In these parts, when we are discussing, in these parts there are different reabsorption of different electrolytes. For suppose, in this proximal tubule, if we talk about here sodium, water, okay, sodium, water, glucose, okay, glucose, these all are basically getting reabsorbed. Okay, then comes your distal convoluted tubule, and here in your cortical duct, basically here water will be getting reabsorbed. Okay, so once that is getting reabsorbed, basically only thing which will be going into the urine will be the waste products. Okay, there will be waste products and water. So this is how your kidney functions. This is how each and every nephron functions. We'll also be discussing that what are different cells in this kidney which are basically helps in your regulation of your different electrolytes, different extracellular fluids. Okay, it will help in your maintaining of your blood pressure. We'll be discussing this in this nephron. Okay, so one by one each part we'll be discussing. So now we'll be discussing about the next slide. If we discuss here, okay, so this is the histological aspect. Now suppose I am taking this cell. Okay, I'll be taking one of the cell here. Suppose I'm taking this thick ascending loop of Henle. Okay, you are discussing about this thick ascending loop of Henle here. Okay, in this part, if we are discussing this thick ascending limb of loop of Henle, this diagram I have taken from Ganong, and the previous diagrams were from G.K. Pal. Okay, so if we are discussing this thick ascending loop of Henle, what we can see that there are specialized cells. These are called as the macula densa. Okay, and these have the neighboring cells which are the Lacis cell. Now Lacis cells are basically these are secreting juxtaglomerular cells, and this forms the juxtaglomerular apparatus. So this juxtaglomerular apparatus, this will help in your regulation of your blood pressure. Okay, This will secrete renin, and this has many roles. In the next slides, I'll be discussing this. So once there will be an increase or decrease, if suppose here the urine volume, the urine basically goes and there is formation, and here then it will be secreted into the urine. Okay, so here the fluid has to pass through so many cells, and once it is passing through the so many cells, it has various series of events. Some are taking the sodium back into the blood. Some are taking the potassium back into the blood. Some are taking the bicarbs back into the blood. Okay, in this collecting duct, if you look at here, this collecting duct will basically reabsorb sodium. This will reabsorb water. Okay, this will try to reabsorb water as much as it can, so that there is proper amount of urine. If suppose your body goes into dehydration, okay, so this will try to conserve as many water as it can. Okay, if suppose your body is overhydrated, then this aldosterone and this antidiuretic hormone will come here, and this will basically this will be antidiuretic hormone will be less. Okay, so there will be much more diuresis. There will be much more formation of urine. So here is your collecting duct. In this collecting duct, what we can see is the epithelium of the collecting ducts. You can see it has two cells. Okay, if we take the histology, there are two cells. One is the principal cells and one is the intercalated cells, the P cells and the I cells. Okay, very important. These are asked in your MCQs. These are asked in your vivas. Okay, short notes can also be asked. So remember this about this collecting duct. What are these P cells? Question number one, these P cells are basically involved in reabsorption, in sodium reabsorption and vasopressin stimulated water reabsorption. Okay, so these are basically pulling out the sodium. Again, they are basically taking sodium out into the bloodstream. Okay, from that collecting duct, it will be taking that sodium back into the bloodstream. Okay, so the sodium reabsorption and vasopressin or the antidiuretic hormone are basically acting here in this collecting duct, and this will be stimulating more water reabsorption. So more water will be reabsorbed here. Okay, so water is basically they are trying to conserve water. Okay, so remember this the P cells. This was about the P cells, and what about this I cell? If you talk about the I cell, these are concerned with acid secretion. Okay, acid secretion and bicarbonate transport. So suppose your body goes into alkalosis. Okay, so this will try to function here, and this will try to secrete acid. Okay, once there will be proper amount of acid. Suppose to maintain the pH of the body, it has to secrete certain amount of acid, so that your body doesn't goes into acidosis condition, or it doesn't goes into alkalosis condition. So this is how they play a role in regulation of your pH. Okay, now comes the types of the neurons. Okay, nephrons. So these type of nephrons, if you talk, okay, one single nephron which I have taken here, suppose I'll go back here. Okay, one single nephron you have seen. So there are two types of nephrons. Okay, you know that there are 1.3 million nephrons in each kidney. So, but there are two types of nephrons. So what are these two types? One is the juxtamedullary nephron, and second is the cortical nephron. So I'll be discussing this. Here you can see the juxtamedullary nephron, and here you can see about the cortical nephrons. Okay. So what are the differences between the juxtamedullary nephrons and the cortical nephrons? This is asked in your distinguish between in your differences. Okay, in your differences question, this might be asked for 2 marks or 4 marks. Okay, what is the difference between the juxtamedullary nephron and the cortical nephron? Okay, so remember this cortical nephron. Here I have taken this from GK Pal. Here you can see about the table. This cortical nephron. Okay, one by one there are total 10 points. If you talk about the first point, the location of the renal corpuscle. Okay, this cortical nephron is basically situated in the superficial region of the cortex, whereas the juxtamedullary nephrons are basically in the juxtamedullary region of the cortex. So you can see here it is this cortical nephron is basically located at the superficial, and this is basically at the juxtamedullary. Okay, So location wise we have discussed. Then is the number. Number is this cortical nephron is 85% of total number if we take, and this juxtamedullary is 15% of the total nephron. Okay. Length of loop of Henle. Loop of Henle, if we talk about the length, this cortical nephrons have shorter length and juxtamedullary have longer length. If we talk about the length of thin limb of loop of Henle, then this is shorter and thin ascending is almost absent. Whereas the juxtamedullary is longer and thin limb has ascending and descending parts. Size of the glomerulus, if we talk, so these side of the glomerulus is basically usually small and these are usually large. Rate of filtration here it is slow, and in the juxtamedullary it is high. Okay. Coming to the efferent arteriole, here in the efferent arteriole which we see, this forms the peritubular capillaries, and in the juxtamedullary nephrons this will form the peritubular capillaries and vasa recta. In the efficiency in concentrating urine, this is less and this is much more concentration. There is much more concentration in the efficiency of concentrating urine. Okay. Renin content, if we see, then the renin content is more, and in the juxtamedullary nephrons the renin content is less. Coming to the main function here, there is urine formation and excretion of the waste products, and in the juxtamedullary nephrons there is urine concentration. Okay. So juxtamedullary nephrons will basically help in your urine concentration, and in your like in the cortical nephrons, if you see, it helps in your urine formation and excretion of the waste products. Okay. So these are the secretory cells of the kidney. The secretory or endocrine cells in the kidney are mainly of two types. One is the juxtaglomerular, which is known as the JG cells, and the second one is the interstitial cells. These remember these juxtaglomerular and the interstitial cells, these JG cells will basically secrete renin, and the interstitial cells are basically the cortical interstitial cells, the fibroblast like cells, the medullary interstitial cells, type 1 medullary interstitial. Okay, these will basically secrete your prostaglandin and especially the prostaglandin E2. So I'll be discussing this about the JG cell. Okay. And remember this fibroblast like cells, these are basically secreting your erythropoietin. Okay. So these are basically your endocrine cells, and you need to remember that what hormones these are secreting. Okay. So you have discussed about the erythropoietin. We all know that interstitial cells are secreting here, and the prostaglandins and especially the prostaglandin E2. We all know this. Okay. But we'll be discussing today about the juxtaglomerular cells, that is the renin. Okay, we'll be discussing about the renin-angiotensin system. I have a very beautiful flow chart, and it is one of the best flow charts that I've come across after reading so many books. Okay, so I'll be sharing this. Okay, so before we proceed, we'll also be discussing about the ultrastructure of the renal corpuscle. Okay, so what is about the ultrastructure? If we see here, you can see that there is afferent arterioles, the efferent arterioles, the glomerulus. Okay. Then is the Bowman's capsule, the visceral layer of the Bowman's capsule, okay, the parietal layer. So remember about this Bowman's capsule here, that this has two layers. So we all know here that there is afferent arterioles and efferent arterioles. Okay, just a second. There is afferent arterioles and efferent arterioles, we know. Once we talk about the Bowman's capsule here, so basically here, here the blood will be coming and this will basically be getting reabsorbed, and then after filtration this will go back. Okay, so here each and everything will be getting like filtered. Okay, like all these toxic products like urea and creatinine and uric acid will basically go into this urine. Okay, they will go into this tubular, and furthermore this will be, and there will be urine formation. So if we talk about this Bowman's capsule, this one is your Bowman's capsule. Okay, you can see here. This Bowman's capsule has basically two layers. One is the visceral layer and one is the parietal layer. So visceral and parietal layer both you can see. Then there are podocytes. Okay, these are present in the visceral layer of the Bowman's capsule. So these podocytes and the parietal layer of the Bowman's capsule is basically formed by the parietal epithelial cells. Okay, so we'll be talking about this, that how there is proper ultrafiltration of this renal corpuscle. Okay, how this ultrastructure is seen. So again I'll be discussing this this diagram. I am zooming this and I'm trying to show you about the filtration membrane, that what are basically the basement membrane. Okay, so remember this. The first one which you see here, this is the ultra structure of the renal corpuscle. Okay, so this one is the ultra structure of the renal corpuscle, and the second one which you see is the structure of the glomerulocapsulo filtering membrane. Okay, so this is the glomerulocapsulo filtering membrane, or just simply remember about the filtration membrane. Okay, so if suppose I am taking these parts, okay, I am taking this part here, okay, I have taken this part and I am zooming this. I am zooming this and I am trying to see that what are basically the layers which we can see in this basement membrane. Okay, so there are total 5 layers. Okay, there are total 5 layers which you need to remember. So remember that there are what we see here is the glomerular capillary endothelial cell. Okay, so here you can see then there is food process of podocytes. Then you can see about the filtration slit and the podocytes. So basically this will be getting filtered. Okay, now what you can see here is that this food process and these all things, these will all be getting filtered once it goes through the capillary endothelial cell and then into the slit diaphragm and then into this will all be getting filtered. Okay, so here this will all be getting filtered. Once this will be getting like all the fluid, all the blood which comes, this will basically be filtering each and every part, okay, from the plasma into this, like it will be filtering the all those important electrolytes like sodium, potassium, amino acids, proteins, very, very important. Okay, so here there is your filtration membrane. Okay, so I have discussed about this filtration membrane. So remember these parts. Okay, for first one is the glomerular capillary endothelial cell, then is the filtration barrier, then is the food process of the podocytes, then filtration slit you can see, and then you can see the podocytes. Okay, so we have discussed this. Now I'll be discussing, I'll be going through in detail that how this like basement membrane and the food process of podocytes look. So this is the filtration slit, which we have discussed here about the filtration slit. Okay, this filtration slit, this part here. So I'll be zooming this in the next slide and I'll be seeing that what this filtration slits contain. Okay, so this is the filtration slit. Okay, so in this filtration slit, the basement membrane which you see, this basement membrane is basically made of meshwork of fine fibrils enhanced in a gel-like matrix. Okay, and these are basically the barrier. This acts as a barrier of the proteins, matrix, collagen, laminin, and ultra negative charge proteins. Okay, so I'll be what we see here, just a second. Okay, what we see here about the food process of the podocytes. Here this food cells from the third and the inner layer of the filtration barrier, these podocytes basically constitute the visceral layer of the Bowman's capsule and the epithelial cells. So here these are basically what they are having, that they are trying to filter all these like whatever the fluid is, they are trying to filter the amino acids, the different electrolytes. Okay, so these slits have thin diaphragm and there are filtration slit diaphragm. Okay, so one more question which is important here it is asked in multiple times in your MCQs and your NEET exams. This one, the filtration slit diaphragm is made up of key molecule which is called as the nephrin. Okay, so once this nephrin, there is a this will cause kidney diseases. If there is any mutation in the nephrin, this will cause many diseases. This can cause many syndromes and many diseases. Okay, thus the filtration, especially the protein molecules, is greatly restricted by the nephrins. Okay, so if this nephrin is mutated, so this will cause proteinuria. Okay, so remember that this nephrin is basically this is having a filtration, especially the protein molecules, which is greatly restricted by the nephrin. So we have discussed about this. Now comes the location of the juxtaglomerular apparatus. So here you can see about the location of the juxtaglomerular apparatus. So juxtaglomerular apparatus, there are total 3 cells. 1 minute. Okay. So here you can see about the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Here, this is the location of the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Okay, here it is present. So what it consists, this JG apparatus, this has total three things. Three things make up this JG apparatus. The first one is the macula densa. The first one is about the macula densa of the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle. The second one is about the juxtaglomerular cells. Okay, and the third one is the Lecis cell. Okay, so remember three things make up this JG apparatus. So what are these? Just a second. Here is on. Okay. Oh, okay. So the macula densa, if you talk about, here you can see the macula densa. Okay. The first one, macula densa, these are basically present here. Okay, in the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle. This is asked in your MCQs. What is the location of a macula densa? Okay. So remember that it is in the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle. Then comes the glomerular cells. Okay. So this JG cells which we see here. Okay. These juxtaglomerular cells here. These are basically the modified muscle cells mainly on the afferent arterioles. Okay. So these JG cells are basically in the afferent arterioles, and then comes the Lecis cell. These Lecis cells are basically your extraglomerular cells. Okay. So here extraglomerular mesangial cells you can see. Okay. These are your Lecis cells. These are basically your supporting cells. Okay. So we'll be discussing that how these are secreting renin. Okay, here renin will be secreted whenever there is an decrease in the blood supply, whenever there will be decrease in the blood volume. So this will try to increase the blood volume and increase the blood pressure. Okay, so these are basically acting as a sensor. Okay, remember this. These are acting as sensors. So whenever there will be a decrease in the blood flow, it will try to increase the blood flow. Whenever there will be an increase in the blood flow, whenever there is an increase in the blood pressure, this will try to decrease the blood pressure. Okay, so I'll be discussing this mechanism, that how these will be increasing or decreasing the blood pressure. Okay, these are your JG cells. So remember that another questions which were asked about the JG cells, the juxtaglomerular cells. Okay, I'm talking about these cells. Okay, here you can see about the JG cell. Okay, here you can see the JG cells. So if you talk about the JG cells here, these are the granular epithelioid cells. These are mainly present in the tunica media of the afferent arterioles. Okay, very important. These are granular epithelioid cells and tunica media of the afferent arterioles. Okay, and in fact, these granular cells are modified vascular smooth muscle cells. These can be asked in your MCQs. Okay, what are these JG cells? These are your modified vascular smooth muscle cells. Okay, and these contain secretory granules. Okay, they are also called the Pulkissin. Okay, Pulkissin cell. This question was asked in your AIMS exams. Okay, what are the JG cells? JG cells are also called as Watt cells. So this is your Pulkissin cells, and then these JG cells basically secretes renin. Okay, very important question. Again, a question which was asked, that where is renin secreted from? Okay. So you have to answer that this is basically secreted from the JG cell, juxtaglomerular cells. Okay, and this will activate the renin-angiotensin system. Okay, so now we'll be discussing about, this was all about the JG cell. Okay, the first part was the JG cell. The second was the macula densa. Okay, and then the third one will be your Lecis cell. Okay, so coming to the macula densa here, these macula densas are the modified epithelial cells. Just a second here. Okay, I'll be marking here modified epithelial cells, and you have seen that this is in your thick ascending loop of Henle. Okay, so these will act as a sensor. Very, very, very important. Whenever there is a change in the ionic composition, okay, or the rate of flow of the tubular fluid, whenever there is a change in ionic concentration or rate of flow of tubular fluid, this macula densa will basically sense, and this will try to play a very important your homeostatic role. Your homeostasis will be maintained back to normal. Okay, so this is how it plays. So how it plays, basically what are the mechanisms in your renin-angiotensin system? I'll be discussing you that how it plays a role, how it basically balances. Okay, and this will basically provide feedback signals to the renal corpuscle to change the rate of filtration so as to meet the need of the kidney functions. Okay. Okay. Then comes your Lacey cell. These Lacey cells are basically your supporting cells, which we see here. These Lacey cell, these extraglomerular messenger cells or the supporting cells. These basically have secrete some quality of renin and erythropoietin. Okay. So remember that this is a triangular space formed between the afferent and the efferent arteriole. These are present there. Okay. So a question can be asked that where are Lacey cell present? So multiple questions can be asked from the JG apparatus. The first question which can be asked is where is renin secreted from? Okay. Then where is JG cell located? Where are the macula densa located? And where are this Lacey cell located? Okay. So location can be asked. What they secrete? This can be asked. What are these functions? This can be asked. Okay. So have a proper thorough knowledge for, of this juxtaglomerular apparatus. Okay. Okay. So we have discussed that this will also secrete some quality of renin and erythropoietin. Now comes the next one. This is the function of the JG apparatus. Okay. So this basically the JG apparatus here. This will activate the renin angiotensin system, which is involved in regulation of blood pressure in your blood volume and blood pressure. Okay. Important. So what will this do? This will they control the filtration membrane, and via the tubuloglomerular feedback. In the next classes, we'll be discussing that how this tubuloglomerular feedback occurs, and these Lacey cells will be secreting this. Okay. So we have discussed about this. Now comes the renin angiotensin system. Now this is a system which basically maintains your blood pressure. This will maintain your blood volume. Okay. And it has a long-term regulation. You people have studied in your CVS about the short-term regulation of blood pressure. This was about short-term regulation means like a baroreceptor reflex, the chemoreceptor reflex, the CNS ischemic response. Now we'll be discussing about the long-term regulation of your blood pressure. So this JG apparatus, this renin angiotensin system, the renin which is secreted from the JG cell. Okay, this renin and there is an angiotensinogen. Okay, these two play a very important role in the renin angiotensin system. Okay. So remember that this renin which is secreted from the JG cell of the kidney, this will activate the angiotensinogen 2 and angiotensin 1. Okay, I'll be discussing in the next slide. A beautiful flow chart I have. So coming to this angiotensinogen, okay, this angiotensinogen, this is a glycoprotein synthesized in liver. So remember that these angiotensinogen, these are basically converted into angiotensin 1 and then angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. So this is basically secreted from the liver, and there are total 7 forms of angiotensin. Okay. Okay. So this will act as a precursor for the formation of the angiotensin 1. Okay. This angiotensin 1 is converted to angiotensin 2 by the ACE inhibitors. So I'll be discussing this. This diagram I have taken basically from my HOD sir's book. Okay, my HOD sir, his name is Dr. Raj Kapoor. Dr. Raj Kapoor sir basically was, he had given me this diagram, and we used to study during our PG times. So I have taken from his book, which we see here is the renin angiotensin system. It is very simple and very conceptual. In exam, suppose renin angiotensin system is asked, if you draw this diagram, you will be getting full marks, no doubt. Okay. So let us start here. It has basically 3 steps. So just what you need to remember about renin angiotensin system is whenever there is a decrease in blood pressure or decrease in blood flow or decrease in your glomerular filtration rate, okay, in your GFR. Suppose I'll be discussing this. The first one, just a second. Whenever there is a decrease in GFR, or there is decrease in the renal flow, or decrease in any of the decrease in blood pressure or decrease in renal flow, what will this cause? This will start secreting JG cells. These JG cells will basically get stimulated, and this will be secreting your renin. Okay. Number 1, once the renin will be secreted, we have discussed that where was JG cell present and what JG cell will release. Okay. These juxtaglomerular cells, just a second, okay, these JG cell will be stimulated, and this will release renin, number 1, okay. This renin will convert this angiotensinogen, which is secreted from the liver, to angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1, okay. This So this renin will be basically converting this angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. Then via the angiotensin converting enzymes, this angiotensin 1 is converted to the angiotensin 2. Okay, once it is converted to angiotensin 2, this will cause vasoconstriction. Okay, vasoconstriction will ultimately lead to increase in your blood pressure, number one. Okay, what we can see, this angiotensin 2 will also stimulate your adrenal cortex, very important. Once your adrenal cortex will be stimulated, this will release aldosterone. Aldosterone causes more sodium and water retention. Okay, very, very important. Aldosterone will cause more sodium and water retention. Once there will be more sodium and water retention, this will cause an increase in your blood volume. Once there will be increase in the blood volume, this will cause increase in the blood pressure. Okay, so we have discussed one pathway here. Okay, like how decrease in the blood pressure. So this will basically stimulate your JG cell. This juxtaglomerular cells will secrete the renin, and this renin will cause the conversion of angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. Then from the angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2, this has been converted by the ACE enzyme, okay, angiotensin converting enzyme. Then angiotensin 2 is basically this will cause vasoconstriction. Okay, this angiotensin 2 will cause vasoconstriction, and this will cause an increase in the blood pressure. This one is number one. The number two is that this angiotensin 2 will stimulate the adrenal cortex. This will release the aldosterone, and this aldosterone will cause more sodium and more water retention, and this will lead to increase in the blood volume. This will lead to increase in the blood pressure. Okay, okay. The second step, this was the first step. The second step is that whenever there will be decrease in the glomerular filtration rate, what it does here is that this will lead to more sodium and water retention. Okay, there are basically sensors, so these sensors will basically cause more sodium and water more sodium and water retention in the body. So this will, whenever there will be more sodium, whenever there will be more sodium, this will cause more rise in your blood volume. Okay, so your ECF volume will be increased. Okay, once there will be more sodium and more water retention, there will be more ECF volume. This ECF volume will basically then cause what? This will cause increase in your blood pressure. Okay, this was the second part. The third thing here is that whenever there is decrease in the blood flow, okay, which you see here is that whenever there is decrease in the blood flow, this third part which you see, so this blood flow will basically lead to stimulation of the adrenal cortex. This adrenal cortex will then lead to stimulation of aldosterone, more sodium and water retention, more blood volume, and more blood pressure. Okay, so this is how this is so simple and such an excellent flow chart which I have seen, that here it controls, it is basically discussing about the whole holistic approach of regulation of your blood pressure. Okay, I'll clear this all. Okay, so here you have seen 3 steps, 3 simple steps. Always remember this when you people will be going in your pharmacology classes. Okay, when you people will be going into your pharmacology classes, you will learn about many drugs which are acting in this pathway. Okay, the first one drug here is that there are many drugs which are basically acting on the antihypertensive drugs. These are antihypertensive drugs which are acting on these pathways. Like we can inhibit renin. These drugs which inhibit the renin is called as the aliskiren. Okay. Then there are also many drugs which acts here on the conversion angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. Okay, there are many drugs. These are the sartan drugs. Okay. Okay, then from the angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2, these there are many drugs which acts here. These are the angiotensin converting enzymes, the ACE inhibitors. Okay, the ramipril, captopril, lisinopril, we have so many drugs. Okay, then there are many drugs which are basically the aldosterone inhibitor. Okay, this will basically cause inhibition of aldosterone. So whenever there is an increase in the blood pressure, suppose the patient is hypertensive, we can basically decrease his blood pressure by acting via these pathways, by giving drugs which acts via these pathways. Okay, now you understand the whole wisdom. So this is the proper wisdom of this renin angiotensin system. Try to make this notes. Okay, this will help in your lifetime process. Okay, the whole your lifetime concept, this will be you have to remember this, okay, because many of the antihypertensive drugs act on this pathway, okay, and nowadays there are so many drugs like telmisartans and these all drugs, these all are acting on these pathways only. ACE inhibitors and this certain group of drugs, whatever you are studying in your antihypertensive drugs, all are acting on this pathway. So this is one of the most important significance. The second significance which I'll be discussing is whenever the patient is having increase in the blood pressure, okay, whenever the patient is having an increased blood pressure, so this renin-angiotensin system will be acting, okay, and this will try to bring down your blood pressure. The effect of this renin-angiotensin system, this has a long-term regulation of your blood pressure. Long-term regulation of the blood pressure means that it has an effect which starts from week to months, okay. So this plays a very important role in bringing back your blood pressure down, okay. So remember this, okay. Now today we have discussed about so much things. In the next class I'll be discussing about the renal blood flow. So thank you so much guys for listening this. If you like this video, then please give a like and subscribe to my channel and share this to your friends. It's a very beneficial knowledge. Thank you so much guys.